It's the first multilateral visit of his second term. Prime Minister Modi is at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or the SCO meeting at Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan. Thanks for joining us. I'm Harsha Subramaniam. The question we're asking is, what does India hope to achieve from this grouping? I'm joined by Virendra Gupta, former Deputy Director at the Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis, IDSA, and a former diplomat. I'm also joined by Salman Haider, former Foreign Secretary. Gentlemen, many thanks indeed for joining us. Mr. Haider, I'll start this conversation with you. This summit is taking place when global geopolitics is going through some significant changes. What would be India's priorities from the summit, you think, and what does it hope to achieve?
Well, it's a multi-dimensional occasion. I don't think that one should focus on just one issue or one set of issues. Many things are happening now. We've seen that India and China have now developed a kind of sense of communication among themselves, have strengthened the communication that already existed, and I would expect that organizations like the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement would be given further impetus now in the next phase of relationship.
Sure.
And I think that between these two major countries of Asia, there is scope for very important further development to their mutual benefit.
Sure. Mr. Virendra Gupta, India became a full member of the SCO only a few years ago, 2 years ago to be precise. From India's standpoint, what would be the areas of collaboration with this grouping, and what would they want to achieve this time?
Well, for us, it's a very important platform. A platform where India is joined by China and Russia, our two major partners, in every which way. This is a forum which connects India to countries in the neighborhood and the near neighborhood. Now, insofar as issues are concerned, these are standard issues. We have an opportunity to collaborate on terrorism, counter-terrorism issues, which is extremely important. As you know, one of the biggest threats that the world faces today is on account of international terrorism. And this organization has always accorded very high priority to engaging with each other in fighting the scourge of terrorism.
Sure.
Apart from that, drug trafficking, there is opportunity for better trade, investment cooperation. So there is a whole lot of opportunities which are provided.
Okay.
And as Ambassador Haider said, this is yet another forum.
Okay.
And we are not choosy, we are not prioritizing as to which forum is more important.
Okay.
We take whatever opportunity comes our way in order to optimize benefits for ourselves.
Mr. Haider, Prime Minister Modi is also scheduled to meet President Xi Jinping. In the last summit, India refused to endorse China's rather ambitious Belt and Road initiative. Would that pose a challenge for enhancing relationships between Beijing and New Delhi?
I don't really think that this should be overstated. India has its own perceptions about this Belt and Road initiative. I think that China has its views, and the fact that I don't see that there is a kind of antagonism developing between the two, but they have in certain important matters, like for example the question of dealing with countries like Pakistan nearby. There are differences of emphasis, differences of approach, but these have not been permitted from either side to become, especially from our side, we have been quite restrained in this, have not permitted these to become matters of hostility or antagonism. And I think that is the kind of approach that I would expect to see to continue in the future.
Okay, Mr. Gupta, this summit is also taking place at a time when trade tensions between US and China are at an all-time high. The United States has also withdrawn preferential access for certain goods for India recently. Yesterday, the US Secretary of State Michael Pompeo has said that US is open to dialogue on this and other issues when he comes to India later this month. The question is, how do you think Washington is viewing this grouping? It has both China and Russia, both countries that the US has serious problems with. What would this mean for US-India relations?
Well, US-India relations stand on their own legs, and there is very strong geo-strategic connect between the two countries. There are a whole lot of fundamental reasons why India and America are going forward in improving their relationship. And I think one has to begin to look at these relationships as independent vectors. I mean, India has always advocated that there is need in today's context particularly for every country, and it applies equally to India, that India seeks to optimize its relations with a host of countries which may be competing with one another. Now, if America and China have tensions and are competing with each other, and they have trade issues, I don't think this is really of much concern to us. We have to constantly look at how we can use the situation or work in a particular situation to our advantage. Now, if there are tensions between America and China, that has nothing to do with us.
Okay.
Now, you said about America's withdrawal of trade facilitation for India.
Yes.
Now, I believe it's a work in progress. America may be leveraging by doing so in order to put pressure on us, and I think they have a grouse that India imposes very heavy custom duties, has restricted access. So these are issues which go on between any two countries, and I don't think we should read too much into it.
Okay, a similar question to you, Mr. Haider. Does India find itself in a bit of an awkward spot? On one hand, it needs to play along with this group led by China and Russia. On the other hand, it wishes to be a strategic ally for the US in this region. So how does India then balance its interests with that of the SCO and the United States?
Well, it is certainly a question, something that requires delicate handling. We are fortunate that we have a new team in the Ministry of External Affairs now, and we have a highly skilled diplomat in charge of China relations with China, and I trust that will be helpful in dealing with these questions, because the new man certainly is extremely familiar with the ground, and we expect that he will back up the Prime Minister effectively in this matter. But there are issues that will need to be addressed, and we have seen that there is a kind of abrasiveness in some aspects of American policy, where there is the US ways of presenting things have not gone down very well in India, or not gone down very well elsewhere. But these can be sorted out. These should not be exaggerated as ways of relating to defining the relationship between India and the USA.
Okay, last round of questioning, gentlemen, and this is on the issue of Pakistan. We saw the flight issue between India and Pakistan. Pakistan agreed to India's request to allow Prime Minister's the aircraft to fly over their airspace. India subsequently changed its mind. Prime Minister Imran Khan is also scheduled to be there. While there are no scheduled meetings between the two, is this flight episode indicate that even informal chats are ruled out, Mr. Gupta?
Well, if the two leaders are together on the same platform, and if they shake hands, that is normal courtesy that is extended to different leaders in a multilateral forum. But I think we are standing by our policy that we cannot have a dialogue which would include a scheduled meeting, that we cannot have that kind of a thing with Pakistan unless we see clear evidence of improvement of the situation on the ground. That Pakistan must resist and cease to provide support to terrorism. For undertaking terrorist activities in India. And so far, there is very clear evidence. Pakistan has not taken action against a certain set of people who have been clearly involved in terrorist activities.
Sure.
And there are reports to suggest that some of the activities undertaken in India may have been actively coordinated by their some government agencies. So I think there has to be a very clear evidence. I think India's stand is very, very reasonable, that we have nothing against Pakistan, or we have nothing against dialogue. We, are committed to resolving our differences peacefully. But there has to be an appropriate environment for a dialogue.
Okay.
And I think the responsibility lies on Pakistan. Pakistan must first improve the situation, and then, of course, we are ready for dialogue.
Mr. Haider, last word with you. Will the stalemate with Pakistan continue?
Well, certainly what we've just heard tells us very effectively what our concerns are, and these are very real concerns, and we've heard them at length, and we've suffered the consequences. But I would just add one final thought on this subject. Between India and Pakistan, things can change. There have been occasions when people have tried to bridge the gap, to come forward. We've seen Mr. Modi himself has done that, made a few gestures which were very well received when they were eventually made. So these are factors that should never be totally written off in this rather troubled relationship between ourselves and our neighbor.
Mr. Haider, Mr. Virendra Gupta, many thanks indeed for joining us with your perspective on India's foreign policy. If you have been, thank you so much for watching.